She guided the Alpha King's hand around her waist to avoid her old claim. He whispered, "I'll keep you close." His hand wasn't supposed to feel like that. I guided the Alpha King's palm to my waist, only to hide the fading mark of the male I was running from. But the second his skin touched mine, just that warm, commanding pressure, my knees almost buckled. Why did his touch feel like it knew me? Why did my breath catch like I'd been waiting centuries for a male I'd never spoken to? And why? Why did his fingers flex around my waist as if he could already sense the lie I was trying to hide? I meant to protect myself. Instead, I woke something in him. Something dangerous. Something possessive. Something that made my old bond spark violently, like it wanted to reclaim me in front of everyone. And when both males reacted at once, the entire hall trembled. Welcome back, Rainmakers. This is Rain Romance Library. If your heart is already racing, do one thing for me: subscribe right now. Stories like this only get hotter, darker, and more addictive, and you do not want to miss what he does next. The hall was full of royalty, council members, warriors, every rank of the kingdom watching the ceremony unfold. I knew eyes were on me, but I didn't care. My old bond mark had begun to burn again, faint but threatening, and I had only one chance to hide it before everything fell apart. So, I did the unthinkable. I stepped in front of the Alpha King and guided his hand to my waist. The moment his palm settled there, a jolt rippled through me, sharp, hot, alive. His fingers tensed, not in surprise, but in instinct, like his body understood something before his mind even caught up. His breath hitched. Mine disappeared. I felt him lean in slightly, the warmth of his presence wrapping around me like a cloak. For one terrifying second, the room disappeared, and I forgot why I had come here in the first place. Then my old bond mark throbbed violently. A flash of light pulsed beneath my skin. His hand tightened on me instantly. He felt it. His silver eyes snapped down to where his hand rested on my waist, the glow pulsing beneath his thumb. Something ancient flickered behind his gaze. Recognition, shock, hunger, warning, everything tangled together. And across the hall, my old mate saw it too. His face twisted, not jealousy, not heartbreak, but raw, feral fury. "No," he growled, loud enough for the entire court to hear. "She still carries my claim." His influence surged toward me, hot, suffocating, a bond trying to reactivate without my consent. I staggered as it slammed into my senses, trying to pull me back toward him. The king reacted before I could scream. His arm snapped around my waist, anchoring me against him. His power rolled through the hall like a storm hitting stone walls, fast, primal, undeniable. The council gasped. Warriors went still. My old mate flinched as if struck. "You dare force a bond in my presence?" The king's voice was low, controlled, deadly. My old mate tried again, his power reaching for me, pulling, demanding, trying to reel me back like an object. I felt the tug in my bones. I felt the pressure in my lungs. I felt the terror rising. Then, the king's thumb brushed the very edge of my fading mark, slow, steady, grounding, and the bond that had ruled me for months cracked. Just a little. Just enough to breathe. I exhaled into his chest, shaking. His voice lowered, meant only for me. "Stay close." The words were soft, but the entire room heard the threat underneath them. My old mate lunged forward. The bond spike he released hit the air like a blast, pulsing with so much aggression the torches flickered and nobles rose in panic. The king stepped in front of me fully, blocking me with his body, his stance shifting into something ancient. something I had only ever read about in forbidden texts. He didn't just shield me. He challenged the bond itself. Power met power. Claim met claim. The hall vibrated as if the stone beneath our feet wanted to split open. And in the middle of all of it, his hand never left my waist. Not for a second. He held me like he already knew I didn't belong to the male who marked me. Like I belonged here. With him. "Release her," the king growled, "or I'll break your bond myself." The old mate snarled. "You can't. She's mine." "Was," the king said softly. His thumb stroked my waist again, barely a touch, but intentional, possessive in a way that sent heat straight through me. "She guided my hand," he said, loud enough for the court. "And I keep what I'm invited to touch." The hall erupted shouts, protests, shock, outrage. But I heard nothing, because his hand was still on my waist, holding me steady. And I knew everything had changed. Forever. The hall was still in chaos when the king leaned close, his voice brushing the side of my throat. "Come with me. Now." He didn't wait for agreement. His hand slid from my waist to my wrist firm. Commanding, guiding me out of the hall and down a corridor so old the stones hummed under his steps. Guards scrambled aside, as if sensing something they couldn't afford to stand in the way of. I couldn't breathe. Not from fear. From the way his touch kept disrupting the bond I was trying so hard to smother. He opened a door I had no right to enter. The king's private chambers. The moment I stepped inside, he lifted his hand. Silver wards crawled across the walls, silent, shimmering, sealing the room like a vault. "No bond can reach you in here," he said. "Not even his." He turned the lock. The sound echoed through the chamber. And that was the exact moment my old bond retaliated. It hit me like a whip inside my chest, sharp, pulling, furious. My knees buckled. My breath faltered. My vision blurred at the edges. "No, no. Not here!" Before the panic could choke me, he was behind me. One hand on my spine, the other catching my shoulder. Heat poured through his palm like a command my body didn't know how to disobey. "Breathe," he murmured against the back of my ear. "Let it break. Don't let it pull you." But his touch, gods. His touch made everything worse and better at the same time. The mark throbbed. My pulse sprinted. The bond tried to claw up my throat, and he pressed his palm harder into my lower back, grounding me with nothing more than the weight of his body behind mine. "Stay still," he whispered, "or it will take advantage." My breath stuttered. "Then don't stand so close." "I can't steady you from across the room," he said, voice low, roughening. "You're fighting a bond determined to reclaim you. It reacts to fear. So I need you calm." "I can't be calm with your hand there." "Then focus on my voice." His breath brushed my neck, warm enough to melt the panic pooling in my chest. My fingers curled against the table we'd stumbled into. The bond surged again, violent, desperate, and his other hand slid to my side, steadying me completely. His chest aligned with my back, firm and unyielding. "Look at what he's doing to you," he whispered. "This bond is not devotion, it's force." Another pulse slammed into me, my body arching involuntarily. The mark flared like a coal being stoked. A low growl came from him, quiet, controlled. "He doesn't stop hurting you even when you're under another male's protection." His thumb brushed slow circles over my spine. "Tell me you feel that. Tell me you see him clearly now." My breath broke on a gasp. "I do. Good." The bond lashed again, but his hand moved lower, pressing precisely where the mark's pull was strongest, cutting the surge in half. Something inside me snapped free. Heat uncoiled through my core, not the bond me. My body softened into him without permission. His grip tightened just slightly, barely, but enough that I felt the shift in his breathing. "You're reacting to me," he said quietly. "It's not I didn't—" "I know," he said, voice dropping into something deeper. "But don't lie to yourself. This is not his influence." My pulse hammered in my ears. "This is yours." My throat went dry. "You said you needed me calm." "I do," he murmured, his lips a breath from my ear. "But God's help me. This wasn't how I intended to do it." His hand moved again, slow, deliberate pressure, not intimate, not improper, but devastatingly steady. The bond's pull fractured. The burn in my waist flickered out. Silence rushed in. My knees gave out, but he caught me instantly, arms braced around my waist, holding me upright. I exhaled shakily. "It's gone. For now." He kept me against him a moment longer than necessary. Just one breath. Two. Then he released me slowly, carefully, like he wasn't sure letting go was the right choice. "That was his last warning," he said, stepping in front of me, eyes silver bright. "Next time, he will try to tear through the wards." "He can't," I whispered, still trembling. "No," the king said softly. "Not unless your fear calls him." I swallowed. "And right now," he added, his voice lowering, "you're shaking like you expect him to walk through that door." His hand lifted, hesitating, just inches from my cheek. "Tell me the truth," he murmured. "What did he do to make your body react like that?" I opened my mouth, but the words caught, and his expression changed. Not anger, understanding, and something else. Something that made heat climb back up my spine in a slow, treacherous wave. "Then sit," he said quietly, "and tell me everything, because after what I felt from you—" His gaze dipped to my waist, then back up. "This is no longer just about protection." He waited silent, steady, while I tried to force words past the knot in my throat. But before I could speak, a sharp pulse rolled through the sealed wards, rattling the lamps on the walls. The king's head snapped toward the door. "That's him," he said quietly. "My old mate." He wasn't trying to breach the room, he was announcing something. A formal summons. The king exhaled once, slow and disappointed. Like he already knew what kind of stunt the male was about to pull. He turned back to me. "Stay behind me. Do not respond to his pull. Not even a breath." I nodded, though my chest tightened the moment the pressure outside intensified. It wasn't a bond surge this time. It was colder, calculated, a demand, a ritual demand. The king opened the door with a flick of his hand, but kept me tucked behind his arm. The council hall beyond was already filled, nobles, guards, advisor cells staring with a mix of fear and anticipation. And there he was. My old mate stood in the center of the chamber, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on me like he'd been waiting for this moment. His voice cut through the room. "I invoke the right of memory unbinding." A gasp rippled through the hall. My stomach dropped. "No, no, no, by ancient law," he continued. "If a new claim interferes with an existing bond, the female must have her memories cleared to determine her true allegiance." My pulse roared in my ears. Memory unbinding didn't just erase bond memories. It erased everything tied to them. Faces, voices, moments, pieces of yourself. I couldn't feel my hands. He looked straight at me, smiling faintly. "You won't suffer," he said. "You'll simply forget the confusion he caused." The king stepped forward, blocking me from view, his voice low enough to shake the floor. "She is under my protection. The right is denied." "You don't have that authority," my old mate snapped. "She bears my mark." "Not anymore," the king said. The hall went silent. Even my old mate paused. "What are you implying?" he hissed. The king slowly turned, his gaze landing on the faint glow beneath the fabric at my waist. She guided my hand there. I felt the reaction. He looked back at the council. And it was not an Omega response. A wave of murmurs erupted. My old mate's expression twisted. "Lies. She is Omega-born. Her mark is mine. Her instincts are mine." "Then explain," the king said softly, "why her bond recoiled from your command when my hand touched her." Heat rushed up my neck. I felt exposed, seen in a way that didn't make sense, but the king's voice stayed calm, controlled, lethal. "Her mark did not flare in submission," he said. "It flared in defiance. Omegas cannot do that, not unless their nature was misread." My old mate laughed, unhinged. "Misread? She is the weakest of her line." "Then why?" the king said, stepping closer. "Did your bond collapse the moment I pressed my hand to her spine?" My breath caught. The hall whispered in shock. My old mate's eyes flickered uncertainty, then desperation, then something darker. "You're manipulating her," he spat. "She's frightened, confused. The ritual will fix that." "No," the king replied. "It will erase her, and you know it." "Better erased than claimed by you." The king's power tightened in the air, cold and sharp. "She guided my hand," he repeated. "And once that happened, your right to challenge ended." "That is not law." "It is," the king said, "and every elder in this room knows it." My old mate glanced at the council, searching, pleading, threatening with his eyes, but they remained silent. Then he made the mistake. He stepped toward me. Just a step. But the bond surged with him, violent, possessive, punishing. Pain slashed through my chest. I staggered. The king caught me instantly, one arm wrapping around my waist, steadying me before my knees hit the floor. The bond recoil hit again, harder. The king's voice dropped to a deadly murmur. "Touch her with your power again," he said, "and I will tear the mark from your skin myself." My old mate froze. The council recoiled, because no one, no ruler, no lord, no soldier ever threatened to tear a mark off another male. That was beyond dominance. That was war talk. The king didn't look away from him as he spoke to the chamber. "The right is denied. The challenge is void. And this male," he angled his head, "has no further claim." My old mate's jaw clenched so hard, a vein bulged in his neck. "This isn't over," he whispered. "She was mine." The king's hand tightened slightly at my waist. "Was," he corrected. My old mate's eyes darkened. A warning, a promise, a vow. Then he turned and stormed out, the council scrambling after him. The hall emptied in seconds, leaving me standing beneath the king's arm, breath shaking, heart pounding, the remnants of the failed bond still quivering under my skin. He looked down at me. "Now," he murmured, "you're going to tell me everything he did to you." But the way he said it, soft, controlled, protective, made my pulse jump for an entirely different reason. He didn't release me right away. His hand stayed firm at my waist, steadying my breath before he finally spoke. "We're leaving this hall," he said quietly. "There are things you need to understand before he makes another move." Another move. My stomach tightened. The king guided me through a side passage I hadn't noticed before, narrow, dim, carved with symbols I'd only seen in forbidden texts. The deeper we walked, the colder the air became, until the corridor opened into a vast chamber lit by suspended moonstones. The ancient hall of relics. I'd heard of it only in whispers, sealed archives from before the purges, before the bloodline massacres, before the laws that shaped our world. "Why bring me here?" I asked, my voice barely a breath. "Because the council will not say it," he answered. "But they know what you are. They felt it the moment your mark reacted to me." He stepped forward, brushing his hand over an engraved pillar. A hidden panel slid open, revealing an old scroll sealed with broken seals. "These were the first laws ever written about bonded pairs," he said. "Long before moon rituals, long before claiming rights." He unrolled the scroll enough for one illustration to show a male and female locked by a glowing thread of instinct, not the mark we use now. "Back then," he continued, "Alpha Kings could sense the true nature of the one destined to stand beside them." "True nature?" I whispered. "You mean rank?" "No," he said. "I mean identity, power, potential, the core of who they were." I stared at him. "What does that have to do with me?" He exhaled, gaze holding mine. "You didn't respond like an Omega. Omegas submit to pressure, pull, dominance. Your mark should have collapsed under his control today." He stepped closer. "But the moment my hand touched you, it fought back." I swallowed hard. "I didn't do that on purpose." "I know," he said. "That's why it terrifies the council." He walked deeper into the chamber, stopping before a blackened relic's crown split down the center. "During the purge," he said, "they erased every record of the bloodline that possessed that power. They executed anyone born with it." I felt my heart slow, heavy, and cold. "What bloodline?" His eyes met mine, silver, unguarded. "The catalyst line." I shook my head, breath unsteady. "That's a myth." "It was," he said, "until your mark reacted today." My chest tightened. "Catalysts were forbidden," I whispered. "Yes. They could amplify an alpha's instincts, stir rivalries, break established ranks, destabilize kingdoms." "Yes. And you're saying My words caught. "No, that's impossible." He stepped toward me, stopping only when he was close enough that I felt the warmth of him against the cold chamber air. "Your bond didn't submit," he said softly. "It rebelled. It defended itself. And when I touched your spine, your entire instinct system recognized me before your conscious mind did." Heat flushed through me. "That's why he felt threatened," the king added. "Your old mate knows what your nature means. You were never supposed to belong to someone like him." I looked down, breath trembling. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, lifting my chin gently, "we figure out how much of your nature has awakened, and how to keep the council from using it against you." But before I could answer, a pulse slammed against the wards around the relic hall. Hard, violent. The king froze. "No," he murmured. "Not here." Another pulse, stronger. The torches along the walls flickered. Something or someone was trying to collapse the entrance seal. A voice echoed down the corridor. "Give her to me." My blood turned cold. The king's jaw clenched, power coiling around him like smoke. "He's not supposed to know about this passage," I whispered. "He shouldn't," the king growled, "unless someone told him." The seal cracked. A shadow slipped through fast, furious, unrestrained. My old mate. His eyes locked on me. "I warned you," he said, advancing. "If the king won't let me claim you, then I'll take you myself." The bond slammed into me like a blade sharper than anything before. Pain shot through my ribs. I stumbled back. The king moved faster. One step, one breath, and he was between us, power tearing through the chamber in a wave that cracked stone. "Touch her," he said, "and you will not leave this room alive." My old mate didn't slow. He lunged straight for me, and I felt the bond lash open like a trap. A trap I knew too late he meant to close around me forever. He lunged. The bond hit me like a snare, tightening around my lungs, dragging, yanking, commanding me to step toward him. My feet slid on the stone floor as if pulled by invisible chains. "No!" I gasped, trying to brace myself against the wall. But his influence flooded harder. My vision blurred. My knees buckled. His hand shot out to grab me, and then a force slammed between us. The king. He tore me out of the bond's pull so fast the air cracked. My back collided with his chest. His arm wrapped around my waist in one fast, anchoring sweep. His power surged outward in a single, devastating wave that threw my old mate across the chamber. Stone shattered as he hit the wall. The bond recoiled, screaming inside me. I choked on a sob, gripping the king's wrist where it pressed to my waist. The mark beneath my skin burned like wildfire, too hot, too bright, too alive. "Easy," he murmured against my temple. "You're fighting him and yourself. Focus on me." "I can't." The pain twisted sharper, cruller. His hand shifted lower, warm, firm, precisely where the pull was strongest. The sound that left me wasn't pain, it was release. The bond cracked, a hairline fracture, a breath of freedom. My old mate roared in fury. "You think you can break what I put in her?" The king didn't answer. His hand tightened at my waist, and the bond snapped again, louder, deeper, splitting through my ribs. I arched back into him without meaning to, breath torn from my throat. "Look at me," he whispered. I couldn't. My eyes squeezed shut as another pulse shook through me. "Look at me," he repeated, voice dropping into something low and commanding something that slid under my skin and silenced everything but him. I forced my eyes open. His silver gaze locked onto mine. And the bond inside me shattered. A sound like cracking glass echoed through the relic hall. My mark burned once hard, then went cold. Empty. Free. I collapsed. He caught me fully this time, one arm curling beneath my knees as if I weighed nothing. The world around us blurred, light streaking, stone shifting until I realized he'd pulled us through a warded passage. A secluded chamber, sealed, hidden. No one else inside. The air was thick, charged, alive with the remnants of what had broken. My body trembled uncontrollably, the mark still buzzing under my skin with leftover sparks. He pressed me gently against the nearest wall to steady me. But the moment my back touched stone, my legs gave out. He stepped in instantly, bracing a hand beside my head, the other gripping my waist again, firm, necessary, grounding. "Breathe," he murmured. I tried, but every inhale felt like heat sliding down my spine. The broken bond flared wild, unstable, uncontrolled, desperate to latch onto anything steady. His thumb dragged a slow line across my waist. Not intimate, not intentional, but devastating. My breath hitched sharply. His jaw flexed. He leaned in, forehead brushing mine for half a second, steadying me, anchoring me, warning himself. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this," he whispered. A tremor ripped through me, raw, overwhelming. "Make it stop," I breathed. "I'm trying." His voice frayed at the edges. "But the break woke something in you. Instinct, need, power. I have to keep you from spinning out." His hand slid to the small of my back, and my entire body bowed toward him. Heat punched through me so sharply, I grabbed his shoulders for balance. He caught my wrists, pressing them gently to the wall above my head. "Don't move," he warned softly. The words shouldn't have made my pulse jump, but they did. My breath tangled with his as the broken energy surged again, trying to climb my throat, trying to drag me under. His weight pressed subtly into mine, not trapping, not overpowering, just enough to keep me from sliding down the wall. His lips brushed my ear. "Stay with me." A soft, helpless sound escaped me. His breath roughened. The chamber pulsed with energy, his dominance holding the wildness in my body at bay. My surrender keeping me from collapsing entirely. Power threading between us in raw, dangerous waves. My old bond was gone, but something else had awakened in its place. Something unclaimed, something real, something neither of us understood yet. He lowered his forehead to mine, eyes half-lidded, breath ragged. "If I step back," he murmured, "you'll fall." I swallowed hard. "Then don't." His fingers tightened on my waist. Just once. Enough to feel the answer in my pulse. Enough to tell me he was fighting something too. "Not yet," he whispered. His voice was a low promise. "I've got you." His breath steadied mine long enough for the trembling to fade. Only then did he ease his grip, stepping back just enough to search my face without breaking the fragile hold he had on my instincts. "You're stabilizing," he murmured, relief flickering through his eyes. "Good. We have to move." The council felt what happened. The words chilled me. Of course they had. A bond breaking inside the castle wasn't subtle, it echoed. He offered his hand. I took it. The second our palms touched, something inside me clicked into place, quiet, focused. No longer wild. His brows lifted slightly, but he didn't comment. He simply led me back through the concealed corridor toward the council hall. Voices erupted the moment we entered. "There she is. She's unbound. This is dangerous. I told you the king overstepped." Accusations whipped through the air like knives. The king stepped forward, pulling me subtly behind him, shoulders squared, gaze sharp enough to cut stone. "Enough," he said. Silence slammed into the chamber. Lord Thalen, the oldest council member, pointed a trembling finger toward us. "She broke a bond in your presence. That is impossible unless you interfered. Unless you—" He lowered his voice, scandal dripping from every syllable. "Seduced her." My breath caught. The room buzzed with quiet outrage. The king didn't blink. "If you accuse me of coercion again," he said, voice soft but lethal, "I will dismantle this council piece by piece, starting with your seat." Gasps rippled. Councilors paled, but Thalen didn't back down. His gaze slid to me, calculating, hungry, too knowing. "She was marked," he said slowly. "Omegas don't break bonds alone. Someone helped her. Someone wanted her, unattached." Something twisted in my chest. Not fear, recognition. Because the moment his eyes locked onto mine, my intuition flared loud, painful, absolute. He was lying. He knew more than he should. And beneath his heartbeat, a whisper of familiar energy. My old mate's influence, a faint tether, a shared purpose, a conspiracy. The king felt me stiffen beside him. Without looking, he shifted slightly, shielding me from Thalen's view. "What are you hiding, counselor?" he asked. Thalen's jaw clenched. "Nothing." "But she is unstable. She needs to be evaluated, contained." "Contained?" the king repeated. "She broke a bond you all swore was unbreakable. She deserves answers, not imprisonment." "She is a threat," Thalen insisted. My intuition pulsed again, harder this time. Images flashed in my mind. Cold hands, a ritual circle, a whispered verdict. "She won't survive the first binding." My breath hitched. The king turned to me instantly. "What did you sense?" I swallowed, staring at Thalen. "I know that man. Not his face, but his voice. I've heard him before." When? The king asked. I shook my head, confusion and horror knotting together. Not while I was awake. Thalen's expression shifted, a flicker of panic beneath the practiced calm. The king saw it too. He stepped toward him. What did you do to her? I did nothing, Thalen snapped. But sweat beaded at his temple. My intuition surged again, painfully clear this time. The voice from my memory whispered, she won't last long. The boy's mark will finish her. She's expendable. My breath left my body. You, I whispered. You said I wouldn't survive my first bond. The hall went dead silent. Thalen's face drained of color. The king's hand curled into a fist. You tried to kill her, he said quietly, long before she ever stood in my hall. Thalen stumbled back. You have no proof. The king's eyes sharpened to silver steel. I don't need proof when she remembers your voice. She is unbound. Her mind is unstable. She can't be trusted. She remembers, the king repeated, and so do I. He took one step forward. Thalen flinched. Counselors recoiled. The king's voice dropped into something I had never heard from him before. Not anger, not threat, judgment. You orchestrated a bond meant to kill her. His gaze swept the council. You all knew Omegas don't survive illegal bindings. You let her be marked. You watched her fade, and when she didn't die, you let him try again. My knees weakened. I had never been meant to survive. Never meant to stand here. Never meant to break anything. But I had. And now the truth was spilling. Thalen's voice rose shrilly. She is dangerous. Her survival alone proves she is. She is not the danger, the king said, stepping between us. You are. Thalen bolted. The king reacted instantly. Guards sprang into motion, but Thalen wasn't running for the exit. He was running for the door behind me. And as he reached it, a shadow lunged from the corridor outside, familiar, furious, unstoppable. My old mate. His eyes locked onto me. This time, he snarled, you're coming with me. He barreled toward me, my old mate rage twisting every line of his face. The council scattered, guards too slow to intercept him. But the king wasn't slow. He moved in a blur, slamming into my old mate before he could reach me. The force sent both of them crashing into a pillar. Stone cracked, dust exploded, shouts filled the hall. Run! The king barked at me, but I couldn't. My legs refused, not from fear, from instinct. My intuition flared violently, warning me the moment I moved he'd follow. The old bond was gone, but the damage wasn't. He still sensed me like a predator senses a wound, which meant the king sensed him through me. His power snapped outward raw, unrestrained, and the air thickened until the torches dimmed. He never lost control, not until now. My pulse spiked. He felt it. His head whipped toward me, silver eyes blazing with something primal. Don't be afraid, he said, but the words shook slightly. My old mate laughed through a busted lip. Look at him. He can't control it. The king growled a sound that vibrated through the floor. Touch her again, he warned, and I don't care what law protects you. My old mate wiped blood from his mouth. You still don't understand what she is, do you? The king froze, and that was all the distraction my old mate needed. He sprinted toward a side exit, slipping past the confused guards. The king moved to chase him, but then I gasped. Something burned under my skin, a spark, a pulse, a strange tug pulling me toward a direction I didn't understand. The king turned instantly. What's wrong? Something's calling me. It's him, the king growled. He's trying to reactivate the imprint. No, I whispered, trembling. This isn't him. The king held my gaze for one long second, then took my hand. Show me. He led me into the deeper chambers of the palace, past doors lined with silver and glyphs I'd never seen. The pull inside me grew stronger, familiar, tugging, impossible. We reached a sealed archway. The king pressed his hand to it. The wall recognized him and slid open. The chamber inside was filled with dust, cracked shelves, and scrolls so old the ink looked faded to shadow. "The lost archives," he murmured. "No one has entered in generations." My steps faltered. "Why do I feel something here?" He turned to me, eyes narrowing with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Because records of your kind were burned," he said, "but traces remain, echoes, instincts that never fully died." He lifted a worn ledger, flipped a few pages, then stopped, fingers tightening around the parchment. "What?" I whispered. He handed it to me. My vision blurred around the words. Catalyst pairings. Forbidden. Extinct. Too powerful to regulate. Catalyst. My knees almost gave out. "No," I whispered. "I can't be." "You are," he said quietly. "Everything fits. The broken bond. The resistance. The reaction to my touch." My pulse raced. He stepped closer. "When you are frightened," he continued softly, "my instincts spike. Hard. Uncontrolled. I've never experienced that, not in centuries." "That was you losing control?" I whispered. "That was you amplifying me." I swallowed hard. "And when another male touched you," he exhaled sharply. I nearly tore him apart. Heat shot through my chest, not attraction fear. "For you?" I whispered. "For any male," he corrected softly, "but especially him." I closed my eyes, breath shaking. "I didn't mean to cause this." "You didn't," he said, voice gentling. "This is your nature." "And the council hates it." "They fear it," he corrected. My hands trembled. He covered one gently with his own. But before either of us could speak again, a slow clap echoed from the shadows. My old mate stepped into view, leaning casually against the archway, as if the guards hadn't just chased him across half the castle. The king moved to shield me. "Stay back," he warned. My old mate smirked. "Relax. I'm not here for a fight. I'm here for the truth." He looked straight at me. "They think you awakened as a catalyst recently." He shook his head. "You were born one." My stomach dropped. He took a step forward. "And I knew it the moment I met you." The king's voice dropped to ice. "How?" "Because your instincts smelled wrong," my old mate said simply. "Too sharp for an omega. Too bright." He grinned, dark and triumphant. "So I marked you before the council could see the truth." Cold horror crept up my spine. "You marked me illegally?" I whispered. His eyes gleamed. "I marked you to hide you." The king's power snapped, but my old mate lifted a hand. "I saved her life," he said calmly. "I hid what she was. Because if the council learned she was a catalyst, then—" His eyes locked on mine. "They would have killed you before your first moon." My breath vanished. Killed. Before the bond. Before the mark. Before anything. "You're lying," I whispered. "Am I?" he asked softly. "Or did your intuition already tell you that?" My chest tightened painfully. "It wasn't the bond that was supposed to kill you," he said. "It was the council." The king stepped forward, voice trembling with rage. "Why didn't you tell her?" "Because she would have run," my old mate snapped. "And running is exactly what gets catalysts hunted." He looked at me again, face raw, unguarded. "I did the only thing I could to protect you." He paused. "And now that your mark is broken, they'll come for you." The king didn't speak. Not at first. He just stood there, shoulders tight, chest rising too fast. silver eyes flickering with something unstable. The more my old mate talked, the more the king's instincts spiked sharper, hotter, harder to suppress. I felt it through the air, through the floor, through the bond echoes humming under my skin. The king wasn't just angry, he was losing control. My old mate saw it too and stepped back with a mocking bow. She's a catalyst. You know what happens when the moon rises. Better get her somewhere private before you break something you can't fix. The king's growl wasn't human. The torches dimmed. I felt the moon surge hit him first, a wave of heat that crashed through his control. He staggered. Silver light crawled along his veins. I moved toward him on instinct. He caught my wrist before I could speak, grip hot and trembling. "Don't," he rasped. "I'm not stable." But his warning came too late. My presence alone made it worse. A surge rolled through him raw, feral, and his other hand slammed against the wall beside my head to keep himself anchored. His breath hit my cheek. "You need to leave," he forced out. "I'm not leaving you like this. You don't understand." His forehead pressed to mine, breath broken, body shaking. "When the moon hits me during a catalyst reaction, I can't hold myself together." "Then tell me how to help." "You can't." "Try me." Another surge ripped through him, his body bowing toward mine before he caught himself again. His hand slid from the wall to my waist unintentionally, but devastating in the way it sent heat spiraling through us both. His voice dropped, low and tortured. "You anchor me." I swallowed. "Then let me." "You don't know what you're asking." But I did. I stepped closer. The impact was immediate. His breath hitched, his grip tightened, his eyes shut like he'd been struck. The moonlight pouring through the window hit his back, silver and hot, and everything in him surged toward me, as if the bond he didn't have was trying to form anyway. "Please," he whispered, "don't move unless I tell you." My heart raced. "Okay." His fingers slid to the small of my back, guiding me flush against him, not rough, not gentle, just necessary. The moment our bodies aligned, his entire frame shuddered. "Breathe with me," he murmured. "Slow. Don't break away." I inhaled. He followed. I exhaled. He steadied. The moon surge pressed harder, and he braced one hand against the wall behind me, the other gripping my waist as if anchoring both of us to the stone. Heat pulsed between us, low, rhythmic, overwhelming. The chamber dimmed, then brightened, shadows shifting over our bodies like smoke. His voice dropped deep, commanding. "Look at me." I did, and that was when the world broke open. The surge hit full force, his control snapped, and he pressed me to the wall completely, forehead against my temple, breath ragged, chest heaving against mine. "Don't run," he said through clenched teeth. "Stay right here. Stay with me." His hand slid up my spine, slow, deliberate, sending my breath scattering. His other hand stayed at my waist, thumb stroking once, just once, and the spark that shot through me made my knees buckle. He caught me instantly. "Easy," he whispered. "I've got you. I always have you." His lips were at my ear now, not touching, not kissing, just there, breathing with me. Heat pushed, pulled, tangled between us, dominance and surrender counterweighted perfectly, holding each other steady. "Anchor me," he murmured. "Pull me back." My fingers curled into his shirt, dragging him closer. He groaned low, broken sound, his forehead dropping to my shoulder as the moon surge tightened around his body. "This shouldn't feel this." He couldn't finish. Neither could I. Something inside me answered him, slow and molten, a pulse blooming deep and dangerous. He lifted my chin, breath trembling against my lips. "Don't break eye contact," he whispered. I didn't, and the instant our gazes locked, something behind his eyes cracked open and a memory not mine hit me like a wave. A ritual circle, moonlight dripping onto stone, a cloth over my eyes, hands not belonging to either male. A whispered command. "Bind her. Make sure she doesn't survive." I gasped, and the king reacted instantly, cupping the back of my head to keep me from collapsing. "What did you see?" His voice was sharp, urgent. Someone tampered with my bond, before either of you touched me." The king's breath stopped altogether. "Who?" "I don't know. I couldn't see a face. But the voice—" My throat tightened. It wasn't my old mate's. His hand tightened on my waist, heat and fury mixing into something dangerous. "They tried to kill you at the ritual," he murmured. "Whoever did this, they never expected you to survive." The moon surge pulsed again hard. He pressed me back to the wall, forehead resting against mine, breath shaking. "Stay with me," he whispered. "We're not done." He held me against the wall until the last tremor of the surge eased out of his body. Only then did he draw back just enough to see my face, not enough to let go. "Whoever did this," he said quietly, "they wanted you erased before you ever awakened." My breath still shook from the memory burning behind my eyes. "It wasn't him," I whispered. "My old mate didn't do the ritual. The voice, it belonged to someone older, someone who spoke like they had authority to order a death." His jaw tightened. "Thalen." The name alone made my pulse spike. My intuition flared sharp, chilling, confirming what my instinct already knew. He wasn't working alone. "He knew about catalysts," I murmured. "Before I did, before you did, before anyone should have." "He arranged the illegal bond," the king said. "Your old mate was only a tool, a pawn, a mask, the wrong enemy." Pieces clicked into place so fast it made me dizzy. "That's why the council wanted to erase my memories," I said softly. "Not to protect me, to keep me quiet." The king nodded once, fury simmering under his control. "You were never meant to survive the bonding, and when you did, that broke every plan they had." I swallowed hard. "And now?" "Now," he said, "they're desperate." He moved away, only far enough to pace once energy rolling off him like heat off a blade. When he turned back, his expression was sharper, focused. "A catalyst pairing with an alpha king rewrites the entire dominant structure. The council knows this. If we complete a bond—" His voice dropped low. "They lose their power." I felt the truth of it like a thrum in my blood. "And they don't intend to let that happen," I whispered. "No." His gaze met mine, unwavering. "They'll target you before they ever target me." A shiver ran through me. "What do they want? To control the kingdom?" "To keep it exactly as it is," he said. "Predictable, manageable. Without wild cards like you." He stepped closer again, slow, deliberate until his hand brushed mine. I didn't pull away. "You break rules just by breathing," he said softly. "They built their world on rules. And now I was breaking them. All of them." The room went still. The king stiffened. Someone was approaching. The door slammed open. Captain Aldrich, breathless, eyes wide. "Your Majesty, there's something you need to see." He handed the king a parchment stamped with the high seal. The king's expression darkened as he opened it. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. "What is it?" I whispered. He lifted his gaze to mine. "They've issued a bounty." My stomach dropped. "A bounty?" "On you," the king said, voice razor sharp. Effective immediately. Aldrich swallowed hard. It spread through every pack, every clan, every faction. The order says she is to be captured alive and delivered to the High Council for purification. I went cold. Purification, I repeated. A lie, a mask, a polite word for something far darker. The king crushed the parchment in his hand. They want you silenced, he growled. Permanently, Aldrich continued, voice grim. And they're offering enough gold to make half the kingdom willing to betray their own blood. My throat tightened. They're hunting me. The king stepped in front of me, instinct, protection, fury merging into one seamless force. No, he said. They're hunting what you can become. His hand found my waist not as an anchor this time, but as a vow. And as long as I breathe, they'll never touch you. But my intuition whispered the truth. They weren't coming for me tomorrow. They weren't coming for me next week. They were already here. The king didn't release my waist until Aldrich left the chamber. Even then, his hand hovered close, protective, tense, ready to pull me behind him at the slightest shift in the air. They'll come tonight, he muttered. They always strike before the bounty ripples too far. My pulse raced. Here? Inside the palace? He met my eyes' truth, sharp and hidden. They're already inside. The words weren't a warning. They were confirmation. And then something shifted. Not sound, not movement, a feeling. A cold thread of intuition I couldn't ignore. We need to leave this room, I whispered. He stepped forward instantly. Where? The lamp beside us shattered. The king grabbed my wrist and pulled me behind him. Shadows dropped from the ceiling, 3, maybe 4, silent, masked, fast. Steel glinted, my breath locked. They didn't go for him. They went for me. Stay down, he snapped, pushing me behind a marble pillar as he met the first assassin head-on. The clash was brutal steel against instinct. The king fought like a storm, no wasted movement, every strike lethal. But more shadows appeared, slipping through cracks in the wards like smoke. Too many. Too coordinated. Too prepared. My intuition screamed. Someone helped them get inside. I backed toward the rear entrance, heart pounding. A hand clamped over my mouth. I tried to scream, but the scent hit me first. My old mate. He dragged me into the corridor, slamming the door behind us. I fought him, hands clawing, breath breaking, until he shoved me against the wall. Stop, he hissed. If you die, I die. I froze. What? The backlash, he snapped. Breaking a bond illegally cuts both ways. If they kill you before it settles, my mind goes with it. So that was it. Not love, not regret. Self-preservation. My stomach twisted. You didn't save me, I whispered. You saved yourself. His jaw tightened. I did what I had to. He gripped my arm too hard, too cold, too familiar. Move. There's a passage that leads out of the palace. You're safer with me than with him right now. No, I breathed. I'm not. You don't have a choice. He pulled me down the corridor, ignoring my protests, ignoring the tears burning at my eyes. He didn't look back, didn't soften, didn't care, because he couldn't. He wasn't built for affection, only control. My intuition finally confirmed what my fear had always suspected. His emotions weren't broken. They were absent. We reached a narrow stairway. He shoved open the door at the bottom, revealing a hidden passage lit by moonlight. Go, he ordered. I'm not trusting you. You don't have to trust me. You just have to live long enough for the bond to settle. Disgust churned in my throat. That's why you're doing this? Why else? A sound echoed behind us, the king's voice, cold and furious. "Step away from her!" My old mate snarled. "You're losing control. She'll trigger you, she always does. Let someone stable take her." "That excludes you," the king said, stepping into view. His eyes were too bright, too silver. Moonlight clawed through the windows behind him, feeding the surge he still wasn't recovered from. He was one breath away from snapping. I could feel it. My old mate grabbed my wrist and shoved me through the open passage. Straight into a second hand caught me. Warm, steady, unyielding, the king's. I gasped because he wasn't behind us anymore. He'd moved faster than instinct could track. He pulled me against him, shielding me with his body as my old mate cursed behind us. "You said she'd follow you," the king said softly. And she did. My blood turned cold. This wasn't a rescue. This was a trap, one he'd been waiting to spring. The king's lips brushed my ear. "You're safe," he murmured, "but you're not leaving my sight again." Behind him, my old mate went still, realizing too late he'd delivered me right into the king's hands. Exactly where the king wanted me. He held me against him, breath rough, chest rising too sharply for someone who'd fought off assassins and outrun moon surges. His hand stayed at my waist firm, uncompromising, like he needed the anchor as much as I did. But then, his grip tightened. Too tight. "Why were you with him?" he whispered, not accusation. Wound. My breath caught. "I didn't go with him," he grabbed me. He pressed me back against the cold stone wall of the passage, bracing one arm beside my head, forehead dipping close as if trying to steady himself. "You were gone," he said, voice shaking at the edges. "You disappeared from the council hall. I felt your fear spike, and when I reached the chamber, you weren't there." "I didn't run," I whispered, "but he touched you." Everything inside him flared dominance, instinct, desperation too intense, too raw, too unguarded. His pupils thinned. His breathing grew uneven. He was unraveling. And it wasn't rage. It was terror. The kind no alpha king should ever feel. He lifted his hand from the wall and pressed it to my waist again. Slow this time. Deliberate, like he needed reassurance. I was real. The moment he touched me, his control slipped. A growl rumbled through his chest, low, broken. "I thought you chose him," he murmured against my cheek. "I thought you walked away from me." My heart twisted. I would never. He exhaled harsh, gutted sound, and the dominant spiral hit him full force. His body pressed to mine, not crushing, not careless, just overwhelming in the way a storm overwhelms the air before it breaks. "Don't lie to me now," he whispered, voice roughening. "It'll make everything worse." "I'm not lying." His hand tightened on my waist, and then his forehead lowered to my throat, not touching, barely breathing. "Prove it," he murmured. His voice trembled. "Show me you didn't run from me." His body shook with the effort of holding himself back. My intuition snapped into clarity. He wasn't demanding. He wasn't testing me. He was begging for reassurance in the only language an unraveling Alpha King could process. Instinct. I lifted his hand and placed it exactly where he'd steadied me before, low on my waist, right over the echo of what had broken. He inhaled sharply, the sound of someone catching fire. His fingers spread, gripping, grounding. I stepped forward, aligning our bodies, soft and intentional, letting my breath slip against his throat the way it had during the moon surge. His knees nearly buckled. "Don't," he whispered, voice fraying. "Not unless you mean it." "I mean it." His hand at my waist tightened, drawing me closer, slow, reverent, desperate. He pressed me gently but firmly against the wall, his body braced around mine like a shield. His breath shuddered against my neck, heat rolling through us both. "Move," he whispered. My breath hitched. "What kind of move?" "Anything," he murmured against my skin. His lips didn't touch me, but the warmth of them made my pulse stumble. "Just don't go still. If you go still, I'll lose you again." Gods. I slid my hands up his chest, feeling the tension there, the tremor beneath his ribs, and lifted onto my toes, just enough for my body to align with his. The response was immediate. His breath broke. His hand at my waist dragged me flush against him. His other hand braced hard against the wall above my head. Heat crashed through the narrow passage, slow, hungry, overwhelming. His voice dipped into a command, soft but absolute. "Closer." I obeyed. My body pressed fully to his. He exhaled like he'd been drowning. His lips brushed my ear so light it made every nerve in me tighten. "Don't stop," he breathed. "Not tonight." His hand slid to the small of my back, guiding the rhythm of my movement, not forceful, not frantic, just controlled enough to pull us deeper into the spiral. My breath tangled with his forehead lowered to my shoulder, his voice a broken whisper against my skin. "I need you to calm me." I pressed closer, soft, yielding, deliberate, and his restraint snapped in quiet, tremoring waves. He lifted one of my hands, pinning it gently beside my head, his thumb stroking slow circles over my wrist. "You undo me," he whispered. "You don't even know how much." My breath shivered. "Then let me hold you together." He groaned low, raw, and the sound vibrated through my spine. "Say something," he begged, voice cracking. "Anything." I leaned in, lips brushing the shell of his ear. "I'm here." The bond inside us, the one neither of us had named, the one he'd been trying not to acknowledge, snapped awake. Heat flared between us, white, consuming, unstoppable. His body locked around mine. His breath hitched hard. "Again," he whispered. I did. "I'm here." And then something impossible happened. The bond surged, but not into me, into him. His knees nearly gave out as instinct folded him into my voice, into my command, into the soft breath brushing his throat. He shuddered, gripping me like he needed the contact to stay on his feet. "Gods," he whispered. "What are you doing to me?" I didn't know, but my intuition did. I leaned closer, lips brushing his ear again, and whispered one phrase, soft, steady, instinctive. "Stay with me." His entire body obeyed, not because he chose to, not because his instincts demanded it, because I had spoken it, and the bond, the forbidden, catalyst bond, responded. He looked at me, eyes wide, silver shot through with something reverent and terrified. "You can command me." His voice shook with truth. You can command an alpha king." The moment he whispered, "You can command me," the air around us seemed to change, charged, humming, aware. His hand still cupped my waist, fingers trembling against my skin, as if the truth had shaken him deeper than any battle ever could. But there was no time to absorb it. A thunderous boom split the passage. A surge of ritual power crashed through the stone walls, snatching the breath from my lungs. The king instantly pulled me behind him, body coiled in a protective stance. "The council," he growled. "They're trying to sever us." Another boom. Another wave of force. This time it hit me hard, like invisible hands trying to wrench something from my ribs. I gasped, clutching my chest. "They're pulling at the bond." "They can't have you." His voice dropped, primal. They've lost that right. But the walls glowed with sigils, old magic, forbidden magic, designed for one purpose, to tear apart what wasn't meant to exist. The king stepped forward, placing himself between me and the spell. The magic slammed into him hard enough to crack the floor beneath his feet. He didn't move. He didn't break. He absorbed all of it. Forcing a separation ritual, he said through clenched teeth. They're trying to unmake us. My knees buckled. It hurts. He reached back blindly, finding my hand and pulling it to his chest right over his heart. Anchor me, he murmured. Like you did before. The magic surged again, this time targeting the old broken bond too, trying to drag it back, trying to twist it around my spine, trying to force my body to choose the wrong male. My old mate appeared in the doorway, eyes wild. Let it happen, he rasped. If the bond resets, she comes back to me. The king snarled, a deep, lethal sound. Touch her, and you won't leave this room alive. But the ritual kept pulling at my bones, pulling at my breath, pulling at my will. My old mate stepped forward, desperate. I marked you first. You're mine by right. The council is correcting a mistake. No, I whispered. The words snapped through the air. Both men froze. The ritual pulled harder. The sigils flared brighter. The old mate reached for me again, and my catalyst power burst awake like a storm breaking through its cage. For the first time in my life, I didn't just feel the bonds. I held them. 2 threads, burning hot and silver, wrapping around my ribs. One old, one new, both fighting for dominance. I lifted my trembling hands. The king watched with stunned awe. The old mate watched with hungry desperation. I looked between the bonds and chose. Not by instinct, not by fear, not by survival, by will. I seized the old bond thread and snapped it. It shattered like glass, the echo of it ripping through the chamber with a howl that wasn't mine. My old mate collapsed to his knees, clutching his chest, gasping like the air had been punched from his soul. You were never mine, I whispered. You were my cage. Then I turned to the other bond, the king's. Not violent, not hungry, not demanding, just a steady, burning thread, one that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. I reached for it. The moment my fingers brushed the thread, his eyes widened. Wait, he breathed. This will bind us completely. No going back. I'm not going back, I whispered. The council's ritual screamed, trying to rip us apart, but I pressed both hands to the king's chest and whispered the only phrase that mattered. Stay with me. The bond obeyed. It surged into place, not wrapping around me like a collar, but folding around both of us, a shared, blazing tether. His breath broke, and just like before, he obeyed my whisper, falling to one knee, head bowed against my waist. Not in submission, in reverence. The sigils shattered overhead. The ritual collapsed. We rose together. He looked up at me, his hand sliding over my waist as if drawn by fate itself. But this time, I covered his hand with mine and guided it exactly where it belonged. Not to hide a mark, not to shield a secret, but to claim what we had both chosen. His breath trembled as he rose slowly, his chest brushing mine, his forehead meeting mine, his voice warm against my cheek. Now that you've chosen me. His hand tightened at my waist. I'll keep you closer than destiny ever could. And when his lips finally touched mine, the bond didn't flare. It bloomed, powerful, steady, unbreakable. The kind of bond that rewrites kingdoms. The kind that rewrites everything. The end.